This rivalry. A stern test awaits Rohit's men against the best. His trusted comrades return. His greatest warrior is ready for battle. The quest for ultimate glory begins now.
Hey everyone, I am so excited for this series. It is the world's #1 side up against the world champions. And of course, it happens to be India versus Australia. In the past, we've seen some great encounters. Truly relish this contest. And as a build up to the T20 World Cup for both sides, it's a chance just to, lay a few punches and suck up the competition. Thanks so much for joining us. As always, the Star Sports Network across our networks with Disney Plus Hotstar are looking forward to bringing this series to you. And look who we have. I mean, openers galore when we look at opening this combination with Matthew Hayden, Gambhir joining us here. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. India versus Australia, a lot of us have some great memories attached to this series, to this rivalry. Gauti, I'll come to you first because, we as fans, we certainly have memories of our favorite, every time a new chapter is written when these teams take on each other. What about you? What's your favorite memory of taking on Australia, favorite encounter that you walked away with?
Look, I've said it in the past and I can keep saying it in future as well and now as well, that if India has to win the World Cup, India has to beat Australia. Australia is probably the toughest side in any World Cup in any format. Remember 2007? We had beaten Australia in the semi-finals. Remember 2011? We managed to beat Australia in the quarterfinals. Mm-hmm. So Australia is going to be our biggest hurdle. And what better preparation for the T20 World Cup than having Australia at home. So it's going to be a good series because Australia knows how to play those big games, big tournaments really well. That's why they've won it so many times. Yeah, you can talk about probably England in white ball cricket, New Zealand, Pakistan, all those teams. But I feel that for India to go on to win the World Cup, Australia will always remain the biggest hurdle.
Personally for you though, Gauti, what did you enjoy about taking on a team like Australia?
Just their aggressive nature. Just being very positive from ball one, whether they're batting or they're bowling first. And I like the sledging as well. And I've always been a big believer that robots don't play, humans play, and there's nothing wrong in sledging unless and until it doesn't get personal. And that's the kind of cricket, that's the brand of cricket you would definitely want to play. And when you play against Australia, you have to probably be more positive and probably be more aggressive than Aussies. And that's the reason about what I enjoyed the contest. I enjoy the rivalry, and I enjoy every bit of it.
There's no doubt about it. It's fiery, it's passionate. Let's get you the schedule and see what Team India have in store before they head into the T20 World Cup to try and make the best. Essentially, 6 matches for Team India to refine out any chinks in the armor or just to get the flow going. So we start on the 20th of September with this 3-match T20I series against Australia. We start in Mohali, travel to Nagpur and then finish off in Hyderabad. And then we've got a series against South Africa. It's a full-blown series, a limited over series. And, it's great preparation because it's 6 matches just before a World Cup. Yes, on home turf, but it obviously gives you a whole lot to just work with here. So I'll get straight into it. I want to thank all our friends in the media for sending in some questions for Gambhir. I'm going to ask them on your behalf. So Gauti, this question has come from Prajvani. How important is it from a morale point of view to win the battle between the world number team and the current world champions?
I don't know about the morale, but it's going to be a good preparation for the World Cup. It can't get better than playing Australia and South Africa at home. Because ultimately, the pressure is going to be completely different. When you're playing a bilateral series, at the back of your mind that this is just a preparation. The bigger goal is probably winning the T20 World Cup. So you can't compare that pressure unless and until you don't put yourself under that pressure. But you can't do that unless that pressure arises in front of you. But yes, from a quality point of view, it's going to be good preparation. And if India goes on to obviously win this series and the next one, they can go into the World Cup with a much better frame of mind, especially with batters getting runs and bowlers taking wickets. And one thing I really want to see in this bilateral series against Australia and South Africa is Rohit Sharma being completely different. He should probably use someone like a Chahal in the slog overs and see whether Chahal can actually bowl in those slog overs. Can he bowl the 19th over, especially at Melbourne or Sydney, which are much bigger grounds? Can Harshal Patel bowl the last over? Can Arshdeep do that job? Can Huda chip in with different couple of overs? All that. He needs to probably start doing it in this series and then probably take that confidence into the World Cup rather than experimenting during the World Cup. So I want Rohit Sharma to have a completely different mindset when it goes to Australia and South Africa, the bilateral ones. And he needs to be thinking out of the box rather than just thinking, giving that last over to Bumrah, giving that second last over to Harshal Patel. That anyways will happen in the T20 World Cup. But does he have the courage to give it to Chahal, the 19th or the 20th over? Go give it and see whether he can deliver it for you.
Right, and 60-20 has to do that. Hayden, I'll come to you with the same question from this publication about how important it is from India's perspective or morale boosting it could be to get a good result against, the reigning world champions in this 3-match T20I series.
Well, firstly, hello, Mahanti. Hello, Gigi. It's lovely to be with you today. Sorry if I had a few technical difficulties, but yeah, look, I think we often talk about as cricketers this very key point, and that's momentum. And when you've got it, it's very hard to lose it. And when you don't have it, it's very hard to get it. So obviously every moment is about trying to maximise your potential to win every game of cricket, no matter who the opposition is. It's very, very important, to just keep these winning momentums, whatever that looks like, because once you're on a losing streak, it becomes very, very difficult to get it back. So key, not only for this tournament, but key for both these sides to keep progressing nicely through these last 6 or 7 games before the World Cup.
I like the way both of you have mentioned aggression. Let's have a look at the squads. Let's have a look at the India squad first that will be playing this series. And look, pretty much the same faces will be travelling to Australia apart from Mohammad Shami. Mohammad Shami essentially been reserved from that. Good to see from that perspective that Jasprit Bumrah and Harshal Patel are back, because if you look back at the Asia Cup, that's where things got a little difficult for Team India when it came to just losing out on a pace bowling option as well. And so, Gauti, this is the squad. Most of these men will be travelling for the T20 World Cup. Our friends at Rajasthan Patrika have this question for you. Why does the Indian team collapse in big tournaments? And will they be able to win this series? Essentially, we can focus on the fact where at the big stages...
Sorry, you might have to record that again. Someone else was talking in ears.
Lose.
Okay, I'll ask you. I'll ask you again. Our friends at Rajasthan Patrika want to know, why do India struggle at the big tournaments at the big stages?
Look, that's where it matters the most. Nothing to do with the skill, because if it had to do with the skill, they wouldn't have won so many bilateral series. It's just about being more courageous, more fearless. When it comes to those big stages, when it comes to those knockout games, you can be absolutely fearless, aggressive when it comes to the league stage. But once it comes to that crunch moment, those crunch games, those quarterfinals, semi-finals, finals, do you have the courage to be fearless? Do you have the courage to be as aggressive as you were in the league stages or in the bilateral series? Because you know that there is no opportunity to make a mistake, and that is where your mental toughness comes into play. And that is why I keep saying that Australia might not be the Australia which was 10 years back or 5 years back, but they still have the mental toughness when it comes to those big tournaments. When people like Hayden, Langer, Ricky Ponting, all those guys used to play, Adam Gilchrist, you might not get the same quality what they had. Probably this Australian team does not have the same quality, but they still have the mental toughness. India might have more quality than it had in the past, but India probably lacks that mental toughness. So when you have to go on to win those big tournaments like the World Cup, tournaments like the Champions Trophy, it is not about the skill. Skill can only take you to a certain level, or can only take you to a certain distance, but it is about how fearless and how courageous you are, especially in those crunch moments, and be positive. For example, if you have to go for a catch and there's an opportunity to take a catch or to probably stop a boundary, go for a catch. And most importantly, I think this point is very important, which probably Hidos will also agree with me, the team that probably not think about those milestones, whether it's the 50 or the 100s, will go on to win the World Cup. And you will get to know if someone is batting on 47, does he have the courage to hit that next ball for 4 or 6 rather than taking those next 3 balls to get a 50? Because in a T20 format, it is about those 2 balls which can make a difference. From 47 to 50, it might take 3 balls, but it can also take 1 ball to get to 50, 51. So the milestones does not matter in tournaments like World Cup. It's the impact that matters. It's every event that matters. And I'm sure Rahul Dravid from here on should only talk about not thinking about those 50s, 100s or 5 wickets. It's about making those small contributions, but those contributions which are more important for the team's success than an individual's success.
Right. Brilliantly said there, Gauti. Let's have a look at the Australia squad that will be visiting India. A few of the familiar faces are missing. Some have been rested. David Warner, as we know, will not be coming to this as well. You have Mitchell Starc, Mitchell Marsh and Marcus Stoinis as well, who will not be joining the team on this tour. But, an opportunity for... others to just get it going for maybe a young Tim David. So much focus on him in the IPL, so familiar with these sort of conditions as well. So that's a look at the Australia squad for these 3 T20Is against India. Hedos, I'll come to you. This is a question from our friends in the INS. How do you view the schedule of Australia ahead of the T20 World Cup? Because after this series, they have T20s against West Indies and England at home. So are you satisfied with that build-up for a World Cup?
Yes, Mahathi, I am. I think, gone are the days where these cricketers, international cricketers, are playing too little cricket. If anything, they're actually playing scheduled cricket, way too much cricket. So that's why you're seeing a number of players, either from the Indian perspective or the Australian perspective, rested. And I've got to admit, I always wrestle with that, Mahanti, because when you've got an Indian or Australian cap on, it just means your life. It means the world to where you came from grassroots cricket, and it's tough to leave yourself out or even to go to selectors and say, guys, I'm a little mentally jaded. And you can see that in Virat Kohli, through the IPL when he got on that little down run that we saw. It's very hard to dig yourself out of those positions, even as great as a Virat Kohli is. Even as great as a Davey Warner is, they get on little downs now, and the mental grind of the schedule wears you down. So in many ways, I'm actually very pleased that the Australians are challenging themselves to dig deeper in their squad. A guy like Inglis, for example, you guys may not have seen a lot of him, but he's a powerful stroker of the ball, a good safe hands wicket keeper, and a good option should anything happen to Matty Wade, come that first T20 international match versus New Zealand. So, England's going to be a tough competitor in this World Cup as well. They were right there until the end of this last time. They missed out, unfortunately for England, but, playing them is a good option. Playing now India, pretty much a full-strength side in conditions which are really, really hard for the Australians to adapt to is a good thing. So, absolutely, home crowd advantage will be there come the World Cup. We defend our country and our territory as violently. And you said at the start of the show, you were throwing punches, Mahathi. But India is loving, this challenge, and Australia loves that challenge as well to defend at home. And I think that's, really setting us up to be, red-hot favourites in this tournament again.
Speaking of defence at home, that's something India have to start with on the 20th of September. We start in Mohali, the series, of course, across our network, Disney Plus Hotstar, in different languages. We always take pride in that. So question for you, Gautam, from Dainik Bhaskar. The first match will be played in Mohali. Obviously, you know the conditions. You remember the ground quite well. Any advice for the Indian team? What do you see the breakup being or the formulation of the team being for the first T20I?
Well, it's going to be a beautiful wicket to bat on, first of all. It's a beautiful ground to play cricket. Big ground, quick outfield, high-scoring venue. Ball coming onto the bat, especially under lights. There's going to be a bit of a chill, not too much of chill because it's up north. So I'm sure both the teams will love playing at Mohali. And again, the combination and the composition of the team would be probably, I would go with 3 seamers and then have Aksar as your all-rounder, and then Huda playing your 6th bowler and Hardik Pandya. And whether you want to pick Mohammad Shami, you will definitely pick Mohammad Shami because there's no Bhuvneshwar Kumar. So Mohammad Shami, Arshdeep and Jasprit Bumrah. Probably there's Harshal Patel as well. So I would, if there's Harshal Patel there, then I would pick Harshal Patel, Arshdeep and Jasprit Bumrah because these 3 guys are on the flight to Australia. So definitely these 3 guys ahead of Mohammad Shami, and then try and give them as many games as possible till the World Cup so that you will get to know that what they can deliver in different situations of the game. But it's going to be a good series. These three matches are played at venues which are really high scoring, so I'm sure both the batting units would love facing against each other.
Hey Das, what do you make of Gauti's team selection for the first?
I'm sorry, Marty, I was just going to say I'd love to throw a cat amongst the pigeons because you know us Aussies, we like to do that. Mohammad Shami, he takes 3 wickets every game, and yet he's not potentially as a reserve player. He's not going to play, the first game for India and Australia. And he's a dangerous bowler. We saw that in the IPL with the new ball. He was absolutely magnificent, and I think that's a big, opportunity for Australia to just, maybe just look at someone like him and think, gee, I've got to be on my game here and bat very well. But, it's a strong side, the Indian lineup. It really is. And it'll play beautifully at these 3 venues.
That's right.
The first game. Or probably, if possible, don't pick him for the next 6 games. Because it's got to be very hard for the selectors. If he starts performing really well, then there'll be a lot of question marks on the selectors as well. That why is he not on the plane to Australia? And imagine if Arshdeep, Harshal Patel or Bhuvneshwar Kumar or Jasprit Bumrah, if one of these guys are having a bad day, there'll be even more question marks. So rather just probably go with the guys who we've already picked, irrespective of whether they're doing well or not doing well. I know it's tough on Mohammad Shami, but it was anyways tough on Mohammad Shami when he was not picked in the original squad of the 15. So if you pick him now to play in the playing 11 ahead of any of these guys who are on the plane to Australia, it makes no sense for me. So for me, I think he should only be a backup if there's a niggle or the injury and one of these guys are not available and you have to pick the 3 fast bowlers, because otherwise I think there's got to be a lot of criticism and I'm sure selectors will not take that risk.
And I appreciate both of you weighing in. That's what we enjoy about this sort of analysis, the honest truths that we get from our experts. They answer the hard questions, and that's why we enjoy our shows on Cricket Live. We get to get the best of the best together to watch India versus Australia, and looking forward to seeing all of you when we go live with Cricket Live.
क्या लगता है कौन जीतेगा? हम जो वर्ल्ड की नंबर 1 टीम है या फिर वो जो वर्ल्ड चैंपियंस हैं?
यार अच्छे और बहुत अच्छे में चुनना तो बड़ा आसान होता है, लेकिन इस कहानी में तो दोनों ही बेस्ट हैं।
देखिए दुनिया के 2 बेस्ट टीम्स की T20 बैटल, वर्ल्ड नंबर 1 वर्सेस वर्ल्ड चैंपियंस, मास्टरकार्ड क्रिकेट लाइव पे। और देखिए
Dates with us. That's it. Your calendars are already filled. Gauti, let's just have a look at the Indian team again, because as we mentioned, most of them are going to be boarding that plane for Australia as well, that will be taking part in this series. So you're essentially in favor of playing the 11 that you would be playing in the World Cup, or is there anything else you would like to experiment with? Because you'd mentioned that earlier, perhaps from Rohit Sharma's perspective.
No, you can't do that because there is no Bhuvneshwar Kumar in this squad. So you probably will go with Harshal Patel, Arshdeep and Jasprit Bumrah. And then these 3 will be your 3 fast bowlers if you pick 3 genuine fast bowlers, and then pick whichever spinner you feel will play the first game. That's the reason why I said that you will not go with Mohammad Shami. If these 3 guys are fit, probably play them in all the 3 games, and once Bhuvneshwar Kumar comes back, and then you can take a call who to probably rest. So I think go with the guys, give them opportunity as much as you can. The guys who are going to play the World Cup, because they need to be in good form as compared to the guys who are just the backups. Backups are only there if there's a serious injury or if someone is ruled out of the tournament. So there's no point using those backups now in this series and probably resting your guys who are going to be playing the World Cup.
Right, absolutely. And of course, Jasprit Bumrah is back, so that's a huge onus for Team India. Hey Dos, this is a question from the Telegraph. I'm sure you've noticed as well that India seems to have changed their template. They've got a very aggressive mindset when it comes to trying to exploit that power play. So the Telegraph would like to know, do you feel that India should persist with its aggressive all-out policy, or go for consolidation and then go into attack mode?
Yeah, look, you're probably asking the wrong person here, Maharti, because, for mine, and Gigi mentioned this really nicely before as well, as he was summarising what he'd like to see as some improvements under pressure. Bear in mind, a World Cup is all about pressure. It's all about executing in that moment when no one else can. And those big 4 up top, I would hate to see them go into their shell. There's no way. Rohit Sharma, you can see the freedom that he bats with. When he gets into that mindset, when KL Rahul gets into that mindset, Virat Kohli gets into that mindset, and Sky gets into that mindset. Those top four, they need to be playing with absolute freedom. And I'm telling you, if I was in that dugout, that's exactly what I'd be saying to them. I'd be saying, guys, you are the very best of the best. Your skills are there. Please tap into that inner childlike mindset where you play in the backyard, you play at gully cricket, in the streets, and you just play with freedom, with a smile on your face. And I sense also that's such an important feature for all of the players, bowling as well as fielding. And one of the great strengths of the Indian side over the last decade has been its immense ability to improve its fielding. And, that's going to stand itself in great stead in this tournament, same as Australia as well. We're masters in the field. And Gigi again said it before beautifully. He said the moments of time in the match, they are so small, the margins in T20 cricket. They're smaller than going through the eye of a needle. And if you're just smiling in those, you become the smiling assassin in these moments, because once you're free and you're expressing yourself, sky's the limit.
That is so beautifully said, Hayros. Tap into that inner child to play with liberation. I mean, and it's amazing if you can actually do that. Gauti, this is a question from INS, which is, something honestly we have been talking about for a very long time on Cricket Live as well. Would you try to fit in both Dinesh Karthik and Rishabh Pant in that lineup in this series, or are you just going to go with one, and who would be your preferred choice?
You can't do that. If you do that, then you will miss out on your sixth bowler, and you would not go into the World Cup only with your 5 genuine bowlers. You need to have the backup. Unless you drop someone like a Surya Kumar Yadav, or KL Rahul has a bad tournament and you start Rishabh Pant to open the batting. Otherwise, I don't see both these guys playing in the middle order. So I feel that that's not going to happen. India has to go with the sixth bowler. It could be Huda, it could be Akshar Patel and Ashwin, and 3 fast bowlers and Hardik Pandya. So I don't see both these guys playing together.
So who would you go with, Gauti, for this series?
Okay. To start off with, Rishabh Pant, because I've said it in the past as well that you don't pick a T20 player in your playing 11 only to play 10 or 12 balls. There is no guarantee or surety that he's going to win you the game. And Dinesh Karthik unfortunately has shown no interest in batting in the top 5. Your wicket-keeper has to be able to bat in the top 5, and Rishabh Pant has got that quality to bat at any number, for that matter, number 3, number 4, number 5. Yes, you will definitely start with Rishabh Pant, and I don't believe in this thing called that we need a left-hander in the middle order. That is not the criteria to be picked in your playing 11, especially when there is a side like India. The criteria should be, do you have the ability to win a game? And yes, Rishabh Pant has the ability to win the game, especially at number 5. So the thing is, Rishabh Pant to start with at number 5, and then Hardik Pandya at 6, Akshar at 7, and see whether you want to play Ashwin at 8 and 3 seamers, and not play a wrist spinner, because Ashwin can do that job, that defensive job, which might be useful in Australia. So Rishabh Pant to start with.
Okay, so there you go. You've got your answers when it comes to that. Let's look at India's World Cup squad. So, yes, remember, a little different. Obviously, one major injury that we all knew about was Ravindra Jadeja. He's not fit for this either. Now, here is the difference. You do have Bhuvneshwar Kumar returning. Of course, Jasprit Bumrah is back. You do have both Rishabh Pant and Dinesh Karthik that will be travelling to Australia. Ashwin, Chahal, Akshar Patel have been given the responsibilities when it comes to the spin dimension. So now focus on your reserves. The fact that Ravi Bishnoi is there, Deepak Chahar, Mohammad Shami is there, and Shreyas Iyer. So you know what, Gauti, and actually Haydos, I'll come to you first, because you had brought up the fact that you were surprised not to see Mohammad Shami in that World Cup lineup. He is part of the reserves. What kind of message does it kind of send to an opposition? Because Jasprit Bumrah is back though. He is back and would be expected to lead the front.
Yeah, and Gigi and I were talking about this last night. Who are those star players that must play well? Not a nice to have, a must have. And Jasprit Bumrah is one of those. He must play well. Hardik Pandya, he must play well. His leadership and his ability is got to be there. And then, when you look at someone like Mohammad Shami, has he got any extra surprises that the Australian cricket team don't know about or haven't seen before? Yes, he's a brilliant cricketer. Yes, he's got the ability to be able to take wickets, but is he going to be as good as someone like a Jasprit Bumrah? And I think, it's so easy thinking about the glass being half full when it comes to selection of teams. You must back yourself. And that's one of the things that's happening in the current Australian cricket team at the moment around Aaron Finch's form, and I'm sure we'll get to that. But it's all about that squad looking at each other when they cross the line and going, you know what, guys, we've got this. This is our team. We're certain of it. There's no excuses around it. Yes, we've got talented backup players. I mean, goodness, if India, you could pick another squad and still you'd have a very, very good squad of cricketers. So too could Australia. You could pick guys like Ben McDermott, for example, who's a master of the T20 format. But reality is that they've picked someone like Smith. And so, you got to back that in. And that's, I'm certain, what India will be looking to do. And I know Australia will as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Haydos. As a question, thanks to our friends at NDTV Sports. So remember, this is 60-20, guys, starting against Australia, then the series against South Africa before they go ahead and play the World Cup. So great opportunity for Team India. We begin our coverage on the 20th of September across different languages, Disney Plus, Hotstar and the Star Sports Network. One of the things whenever Australia comes around, whether it's Team India traveling to Australia or Australia coming here, the one name that is always discussed is, of course, Virat Kohli. Virat Kohli seems to be back in form as we saw him in the Asia Cup. But Gotti, you would enjoy this because as a batter, you had particular opposition that you just relished playing against. And it seems like the Australian team or Australian soil, it just seems to get the best out of Virat Kohli. And now at least he's coming into the series with a little bit of form. So what are you expecting to see from Virat?
Exactly the same fluency what we saw in the Asia Cup. But the only issue is that when we saw him playing that innings against Afghanistan, it was at the top of the order. And in a T20 format, there's a huge difference playing in the first six and after the first six. And when you go in the middle without having any scoreboard pressure, suddenly you go in the middle when you're one wicket down or probably will have to continue the momentum. So that's a different ball game. But runs under your belt or runs under your belt, there is no better feeling than scoring 100 in your previous innings. And then Virat Kohli goes in the series with a lot of fluency and a lot of confidence. I'm sure he's going to continue. I hope he continues this form because he's going to be very useful if India has to play really well in the World Cup, because number 3 becomes a very important position.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And Haydos,
on that note. Oh, sorry.
Carry on,
Haydos.
Haydos.
Virat, is such a great player of fast bowling, and Australia's full of fast bowling in their cricket team. They're relying heavily on Adam Zampa through the middle stages now. Pointers to take the pace off the ball. Mitch Marsh as well, and he'll handle them nicely. And this great debate around Virat, batting up. Gigi and I have already had this over the last couple of days. There's no way that he has to open the batting. He has to bat at 3. Simple as that. And again, it's another one of those things that you don't want to let the door open to discussion on this. You don't want to have a doubt. You don't want KL Rahul in the masterful form that he's been in of late, and Rohit Sharma as captain of the team thinking, have I got to kind of watch my spot here? I'm an opening batsman, and my job is to play with freedom. And unfortunately, when you start having these debates and you start looking at Virat Kohli, you think, maybe for his game, it should be him opening. I'm sure he wouldn't want to entertain that and put pressure. The one thing that you want to alleviate in the World Cup is pressure. Just let the batting order rely on its own form, and Virat Kohli can handle the situation. He's a world-class player. He can bat at 3, and he should bat at 3, in my opinion.
And it's a very valid point. You know what happens in India? And that's where the problem lies. Whether it's us as experts, broadcasters, news channels, media and all those people, the moment someone starts doing really well, and for example, if Virat Kohli has got 100 in the last game, we'll all start forgetting about what KL Rahul and Rohit Sharma has done over such a long period of time. And suddenly when you start this debate about Virat Kohli opening the batting, imagine what happens to KL Rahul. Imagine what he must be feeling, or the amount of insecurity he must be feeling. Imagine if he gets a low score in the first game, there will be another debate, should Virat Kohli open the batting from here on? And suddenly you're putting him under so much of pressure. You don't want your top class player, especially someone like KL Rahul, who's got probably more ability than Rohit Sharma or Virat Kohli. And we've seen that in international cricket. We've seen that in the IPL as well. Suddenly you start this debate about Virat Kohli opening the batting, and imagine his mindset. Imagine KL Rahul going into the World Cup thinking that what if I don't score a run in the first game against Pakistan? What if I get replaced by Virat Kohli? You don't want that. So that's the reason why we should not even probably entertain this question. Think from India's point of view, not from an individual's point of view. Think from a point of view of KL Rahul or Rohit Sharma. I know Rohit Sharma is the captain. Imagine if Rohit Sharma was not the captain. Imagine what he must have felt. because we are talking about, we won't talk about Rohit Sharma because he's the captain. So everything boils down to on KL Rahul. So that's why I think you made a very valid point that we as experts, as broadcasters, as media should start thinking about how India can flourish in the World Cup rather than certain individuals who particularly want to bat at a certain number.
You know, Hedas, this is why Gotti is so much fun to work with. Before this even became a topic, he like shut it down on live television. He said, Mayanti, don't even think of asking me this question. Should already open the innings after he scored his 100. He said, don't even do it. Don't even think about it.
I've experienced it in 2011.
Like, don't do it. Yeah.
No, I say that because I've experienced it myself in 2011. That was my first 50 over World Cup. And there was so much of debate whether X player should bat at number 3 because I missed the previous series, one-day series against South Africa, and that X player did reasonably well at number 3. And suddenly there was a debate whether I should make into the playing 11, whether I should start in the playing 11, and all that stuff. So why do we? Because I've experienced it, how it feels to go into the World Cup with that extra pressure. You want to take off that pressure of your players rather than just putting on that extra pressure. Yes, we can do that for the TRPs and all the sensational news and stuff. But imagine we have to think from a player's point of view. Players are very vulnerable when they go to in those big tournaments. Heroes know that the more comfort we can give them, the more comfortable we can make them feel. That is our responsibility as a nation, as an expert.
The flip side of that, Mahanti, is you want to have a second team that's very capable as well. You want to have backup players. And India has got those players. The IPL every year unveils some, wonderful, talented cricketers that have the potential to go to the next level. But what Gambhir's saying there is so correct. When you're at that level, you've got time to just settle in. There was a great saying in the Australian cricket team culture that it was much harder to get out of the team than into it. And I think that's a very valid point to the mindset that goes behind the culture of any kind of cricket nation. If you're always watching your back and thinking, oh, what's the next person going to come over the top of? And, I think that's a really bad mindset. It's a negative mindset, and it's a mindset that won't create an expression of freedom that's so key to T20 cricket. Once you start analysing T20 cricket, and we're masters of it at broadcasters, every little step of everything is diagnosed. And the reality of it is, maybe it was just a slip in concentration or just wasn't quite watching the ball closely enough at any given time. But then the questions start rolling in. And when they do, I tell you, it's like a big black cloud that comes over your life, and it's a terrible feeling.
No, it's beautifully said. I appreciate it.
And on top of that, one last point. What will happen is suddenly when you start making a player feel insecure, when he's on 47, he'll take those extra 3 deliveries to get a 50. You don't want to do that. He wants to get that milestone so that he can play the next game. You don't want that. You want someone to score when he's on 44. Go get a 50 of the next ball. Irrespective, even if you end up getting out, 44 is good enough, as good as getting a 50. So that's what the job of a support staff, the broadcasters, us as experts are, to make our players feel comfortable rather than discussing about different positions. We will eventually, if someone is not doing well over a course of time, that will eventually happen. But not before the start of the World Cup when you've got to settle top 3, top 4.
Now, that's really, really great insight, gentlemen. I appreciate you being so honest about this. And these are the conversations we look forward to on Cricket Live. We begin at 6 p.m. from the 20th. Hedos, you mentioned the IPL, unearthing this talent. So this is a question from NDTV Sports, because we saw Tim David make a bit of a name for himself in that IPL. Now, do you how important is this series for him? Do you feel like he can be the X factor looking ahead to the World Cup as well?
Oh, absolutely. I think he's a massive X factor. He's a big, powerful, strapping young fellow that's got power game and the finesse to go with it. The challenge for him, obviously, is going to be out of blue and into green. And, once you get into that international stage, Gigi will I'm sure, agree with me here, it's a completely different ball game. And you've got to have this great foundation behind you. But X factor, 100%. When you look at the Australian side, it's missing a little bit of X factor at the moment. You've got the form of Finch that's, questionable. You've got some of the other great names that are also X factors, like Maxwell, that can just explode. He can play unorthodox shots. He can also play orthodox shots. Tim David, nothing beats power in T20 cricket. You think of the great players over the years that have taken, someone like Chris Gale, for example. Yes, Test match 300s, but in the shorter versions of the game, he was so dynamic. He was so powerful. He would embarrass bowlers, and that's what you need. You know, that killer instinct. And Tim David has got that in leaps and bounds. So, you know, I'm really looking forward to seeing how he responds in the green and gold, especially in India as well, where there'll be extra pressure on him. And just one other factor on that as well. I think Australian cricketers, for a number of years now, have almost tried too hard to play well against India, because they understand they really desperately want to play for the IPL and in any franchise and get opportunities. Aaron Finch, I think, fell into that trap as well, you know, for pretty much every time he's played in the IPL, trying too hard. I mean, he doesn't have to do that. Tim David does not have to do that. If he just sits out there, relaxes, again, puts a smile on his face, he can take the game away from anyone because of his power and his ability also to play in different phases of the game as well. You can't just come out and play right at the top 6 overs and then just go, guys, forget it. You've got to have skills and execution and deliverables to the team right through the course of the 20 overs. It's not that long to bat. 20 overs, it goes like that. So you've got to have different skill to suit the different phases of the match.
In fact, the Dainik Bhaskar would like to ask this question to you, Hayden, regarding Aaron Finch. I remember not too long ago, there was a series in Australia where Aaron Finch had come in with, in India, where Aaron Finch had come in with a bit of indifferent form, and that series in India got him back to form. So would you be viewing this as that sort of opportunity, you know, because it's, you never know.
Well, it's key,
what do you think, how would you expect him to approach this series?
Yeah, look, it's key for him, and it's do or die at the age that he is as well. This, you know, regardless, will be his last World Cup, and the Australians have got always the policy that you never outstay your welcome in the Australian cricket team. You know, so he has the ability, the form. I just would like to see him ease into the tournament in a way that just lets him relax. He gets very wooden at the crease when he gets a little bit out of form. You know, once he gets free-flowing and is able to just free his mind again, we've spoken about, it seems like a common theme through the course of this show, but the freedom to express himself without the burden of that sort of mindset of the captaincy and feeling the pressure. I think he did a terrific job as captain, you know, through the World Cup just last year in the UAE. And I hope he just takes that into his own personal game. The challenge for Finchy is that he's lost his movement. You know, he's very still at the crease and his feet are going nowhere. And to me, that's not a very good sign. And we've all been there as ageing cricketers. I should say old cricketers. That once you start getting into an environment where you're not moving and you're very still at the crease, you get trapped on the crease because the bowlers immediately pick up on it. They go full at the stumps and they'll always target Aaron Finch's stumps because he does fall across the ball. That's, to me, the concerning sign. But hopefully this series he can really just get himself free and go for it.
Well, having said that, Haydos, only you and I look like we're aging. Gautam Gambhir looks the same like he did 15 years ago. So
he's never young, isn't he?
No, Gautam, you don't. We've seen it up close. You've got some elixir.
No, not at all.
All right, let's remind you
red
of the
wine,
series. It'll be India's brilliant run-up to the World Cup. 6 T20Is to go. One starts against Australia. We love that contest against Australia. The first T20I starts in Mohali on the 20th of September before we move to Nagpur and Hyderabad and then the series against South Africa. So 6 T20Is before you're off to Australian shores